And welcome back to Talking Football here at TalkingSports.tv at Charlie Fitz Whiskey's in Vaughan, Ontario. This is the place you got to come to if you want to have fun for some sporting events and some live sports television programming. This is the place, folks. And I don't care if you live in Chicago or in Minsk or in Serbia. Get over here. Get your ass over here and watch these guys and so many others here at Charlie Fitz Whiskey's have some fun, and we're helping you. We're helping you win football. We're here with Uncle Ben of UncleBen'sFootball.com and handsome Howard Kamin, who, of course, is an extraordinary handicapper, and he has helped you for many years now picking your winners. We're going to now switch over to one of the biggest trades for sure, guys, in NFL history.
Totally.
They don't usually happen in mid-season. We'll bring you up to speed. Unless you've been on Mars or something, you know about this deal already, of course. Trent Richardson, who was the third-round pick in the NFL draft, a third overall pick, I should say, in the NFL draft last season by the Cleveland Browns, was suddenly, out of nowhere, with no warning, traded to the Indianapolis Colts and Andrew Luck. And Richardson was dealt away for a first-round draft choice in next year's draft. Something obviously happened here, Ben. What are your sources saying is the reason for this trade?
Well, my sources have told me that this thing's been in the works since the preseason, to be honest with you. I mean, they wanted to wait until the second week of the season to announce it because the Browns wanted their ticket holder. They didn't want to have problems with their subscribers, is what I'm hearing. It's what I'm hearing.
I like it.
Okay, they don't want to have anarchy in their subscribers. They're supposed to be in a rebuilding process.
Sure.
Last year, they drafted Brandon Whedon. Both were first-round picks last year, by the way.
That makes so much sense.
Okay, so they held off. That's what my sources are telling me.
Yeah.
The Colts GM Randy Gregson, owner Jim Irsay, head coach Chuck Pagano, and offensive coordinator Pep Hamilton have to be tickled pink over this one, is what I say.
In Indy.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Why?
Well, they've got Andrew Luck was taking a lot of heat in the first two games. Their running back got injured. Pollard, I believe his name was. Bradshaw came in last week. I think he carried the ball. He was okay, but now they've got a bona fide.
Bradshaw can't play.
Now they've got a bona fide running back. Okay, was fantastic in college. Now with the passing game, Trent Richardson, they feel like maybe they can take it to another level now. The Indianapolis Colts. Okay?
And he will play this week against who is Cleveland playing?
Cleveland's playing
Minnesota.
Minnesota. This game is in Minnesota. The Vikings
who will play? No, you're talking about Richardson will play on the coast against San Francisco.
That's okay. That's what I meant to say.
Yes.
Forgive me. Indianapolis is a 10-point underdog at San Francisco. Richardson will play for the Colts. Howard, how do you see this game shaping up with Richardson in the Colts backfield?
Well, I don't think anybody can come to a team in the middle of a week, not practice with the team all week, know all the formations, know all the audibles, know everything. So, I mean, the verdict is still how many actual plays Trent Richardson's going to be in. I mean, he may play, he may not be in the backfield for every single play. All that being said, I like San Francisco a lot in that game, and I like them primarily due to the fact they looked so terrible last week. I still think San Francisco is one of the top two teams in the NFL. For whatever reason, they can't beat Seattle in Seattle, but they're coming back home. The lines makers made that spread 10 points to get people to buy into Indy. Now with Trent Richardson coming to Indy, more people are going to buy into Indy. I could see San Fran winning that game by at least 2 touchdowns.
Ben?
Yes, I happen to agree with that selection. They're on my service, actually. The San Francisco Niners are on my website this weekend, and I like them to rebound, being nationally televised, blowout. Who knows Jim Harbaugh better? I mean, who knows Andrew Luck better than Jim Harbaugh?
Yeah.
Recruited him. He coached him.
At Stanford?
He trained him into an NFL quarterback. I mean, I think he knows what's going on there, okay? So I do like the San Francisco 49ers there, but one thing I did like what the Cleveland Browns are doing with this trade is that they're stockpiling draft picks. Now they have 2 first-round draft picks, 1 second-rounder, 2 third-rounders, and 2 fourth-rounders. That's 7 picks in the top 120 picks
now, do you think
in
also,
the draft
Ben,
next year. And my sources also told me that they're not done yet. Whedon's the next to go.
Yeah, it makes sense because also the more guys they trade off the team, the worse record they're going to have, meaning they're going to get higher draft picks as well, right? So I mean, Cleveland right now looks like they're one of the worst teams in football. You lose your premier running back, your starting quarterbacks out of the game. I mean, they've already lost 2 games this year. Chances are they have a good chance of going 0-3. You know, they could have some really high selections next year in the draft, which could eventually make them a much better team. Although you never know with the Cleveland Browns. They always draft well and nothing ever happens.
Yeah, but the one thing they're belly aching in Cleveland is they traded a 3rd-round pick, right, in the draft. And basically, you know, Indy's a pretty good ball club. So that's going to be a middle, you know, possibly they could even make the playoffs, or it could be a middle of the, you know, a 15th pick in the draft, or even lower. So they traded a 3rd-round pick for essentially what is a 15th or worse draft pick, which that's where the belly aching's coming in Cleveland. Never mind how, you know, the Browns have been a sad sack, you know, organization.
A long time.
For,
they used to be great in
going
the old
back
Jim
to the
Brown
days of Marty Schottenheimer. You'd have to go back to when Brian Sipe was the last time they had a good ball club, I think, this team.
Yeah, not great either.
Well, but they were pretty good until Ernest Biner fumbled on the 3-yard line.
That's correct.
Okay.
Against Marty Schottenheimer.
No, it was against, it was against Denver.
Against
Denver, but he
before
fumbled.
Marty Schottenheimer. Yeah,
Okay.
I went there. Okay, guys. More immediate
Was that
impact.
Sam
I'm concerned-
Rutigliano?
Who with
Was he coaching that
time?
Or maybe that was Marty before Sam. I can't remember.
No,
I'm getting
Schottenheimer
kind of,
Marty
was
came
coaching.
afterwards.
okay, so maybe it was Sam.
No, I think it was Schottenheimer who was coaching the Browns, and I don't remember who Denver's coach was. But anyway, forget it. Let's talk about more immediate. Our folks who are watching want to know what's going to happen this weekend. How will the loss of Richardson, and also Brandon Whedon, the quarterback, is out. There's a guy named Hoyer quarterbacking for Cleveland. I mean, who the hell is Hoyer? I mean, so this guy is quarterback in Minnesota. As you mentioned before, the Vikings, Howard, are 6.5-point favorites in this game in Cleveland. Any way in the world Cleveland could cover without their starting quarterback, without Trent Richardson?
Well, here you're going against a very, very good example of how the public's going to react to all this. I mean, the public sees this one way. Trent Richardson is leaving Cleveland. They're starting a 3rd-string quarterback. Minnesota actually, they covered last week against Chicago.
Right.
Early signs is showing all the action coming in on Minnesota. I mean, it's tough to bet Cleveland. How do you bet Cleveland this week? They lost their starting running back, they lost their starting quarterback. How do you bet Cleveland? But from years and years and years of experience watching these types of games, for whatever reason, Cleveland will cover in this game. I can't explain it.
I concur.
You do?
I concur. Yes, I do. I'd love to argue with you, Howard, but I can't because you know what? You're
Well,
right.
there'll be plenty of time for that.
In this particular case, he's right.
Yeah.
This is what happens when everybody pounces on one team. Injuries are the most overrated statistic or piece of informative information that you're going to get in an NFL game, other than maybe, you know, if a guy like Tom Brady goes down, it's a different story. Brandon Whedon wasn't taking him to the promised land anyway. Okay, so it's not going to be that big of a deal. Brian Hoyer, I believe, used to be the quarterback at Ohio State University when they were a pretty good ball club. But I don't see...
Cleveland still has a solid defense.
Cleveland has a very good defense.
And Minnesota does not have an explosive offense. They have Adrian Peterson and nobody else, right?
That's correct.
Right. That's
So how many points is Minnesota actually going to score against Cleveland's defense? They might score 14, they might score 10, they might score 17. So all Cleveland has to do to cover in that game is maybe get 10, 13 points, a special teams touchdown, a defensive touchdown. That's what happens in these types of games.
Do we agree then that the under of 41 might be a good play here? Under 41?
Yeah, I mean, I would say if Cleveland's going to cover, the game's going to go under.
Absolutely. Both teams are going to try to pound the rock. The clock's going to be running most of the time. Like you say, I agree with you 100%. Cleveland, all they got to do is score 10 points. Maybe they'll cover the spread. And if you're going to play Cleveland, which it's a bit of a ballsy play, I got to say, but if you're going to play Cleveland, I would wait till the last second because this line's going nowhere but up.
Absolutely.
I mean, if kickoff's at 107, we're talking 105, you want to place your bet in this game, okay?
Okay. Guys, until now, RG3, the quarterback of the Washington Redskins, has been the most talked about player in the NFL. I say until now because now Trent Richardson is. But RG3 remains a very interesting situation. He has not looked good, at least not in the first halves of the first 2 games. And the Redskins were supposed to win that division. They are 0-2. It looks to me that RG3 is still suffering from last year's knee injury. He's not moving like he used to. The Redskins are paying the price. This week, though, they are a 2-point favorite in Washington against the Lions. Let's start with you, Ben. How do you see this game shaping up, and what's the story with RG3?
Well, you know, RG3, he just doesn't look like the same guy as he did last year. For whatever reason, whether he's still feeling the injury, whether he's feeling healthy, but he's a little apprehensive. Whether the defenses are reacting to this new read option that everybody's running and maybe perhaps a little better. They've had a winter to look at the film. These defensive coordinators are very good. They figure out new stuff to combat these new formations that come out. Or maybe it's just a combination of everything. But to me, he just doesn't look like the right guy. He's not, he's not letting the, wind to the sails like last year. He was unbelievable last year, this kid.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if it was Dr. Andrews who said he was fit to play, but things just don't look right with RG3. Now, they've got Detroit coming in this week, I believe, like you said.
Terrible road team.
Horrendous road team, horrific. Actually, they were on my service last week, the Arizona Cardinals, betting against the Detroit Lions on the road. I think they're 1-13 in their last 14 road games against the spread.
Unbelievable.
An 0-2 team playing a 1-1 team. I mean, Washington has got to win this ballgame, if they want to have any chance. Never mind, I think last week, 0-2 teams, I think we talked about this, had less than a 10% chance of making the playoffs.
Right.
Obviously, 0-3 teams have less than that.
Yeah.
So time is of the essence, and I think the Washington Redskins will beat the Detroit Lions this week. Obviously, the spread isn't going to really factor in. It's a 1-point spread, I believe, or 2-point spread at the moment. So generally, the winner's going to cover the spread here. I like the Washington Redskins to finally win a game at home. Mike Shanahan's on the hot seat now, and
he's been a good coach historically.
He has. He's had great teams to deal with,
Yeah.
And last year he took the Redskins to sites, that they weren't expected to get. RG3 turned out to be fantastic.
Yeah.
On the other side, Jim Schwartzel, in my opinion, is absolutely the worst coach in the NFL.
Yeah.
I don't know how he keeps his job, this guy. Teams got more talent than most teams in the NFL, and last year I think they were 4-12, okay? So I like the Washington Redskins this week. Detroit travels horribly. Your take?
It's actually a game I wouldn't recommend because of the fact that, Detroit definitely pays very, very poorly on the road, and they're a hard team to bet on the road. You actually wait for Detroit to come back home because they do a lot better at home. But on the other hand, I'm not sold on Washington this year. I think they're not the team they were last year. I really have very little recommendation either way on this team. If anything, I'd probably like the over. I think this game might turn out to be a little bit of a shootout, and I would, if anything, I would lean towards the over in this game.
I would agree
The
with that.
over-under's 49.
Yeah,
You
I
see,
would.
now that's a pretty high number.
It is.
Yeah.
Which means they're probably they want the action on the under.
Yeah.
They're looking for under action, the bookmakers. Don't give it to them is what I would say. Go on the over. I agree with Handsome Howard.
Yeah.
I do.
Very good.
If you can figure out who the bookmakers want you to bet or play,
Well, you can
you're
tell
going
it
to
just by the consensus.
you're going to be way ahead when
Yeah.
you're playing NFL football games.
Yeah.
Here's a game that's intriguing the heck out of me. As you know, Howard and Ben, before the season began, I really liked the Miami Dolphins. I think Cameron Wake, who, of course, was an unheralded player as he was dominating the CFL, easily the top defensive player in the Canadian Football League over the last 20 years, and now is doing extremely well as a pass rusher and linebacker / defensive lineman with the Dolphins. The quarterback, Tannehill, seems to have come alive. Wallace has brought them a great deep threat. He has been helping them. I like the Dolphins. They're looking very good. They're 2-0. They beat the Colts in Indy last week straight up. And now they are 2.5-point favorites against an Atlanta team that's somewhat banged up. And this will be the Dolphins' home opener. I have a feeling you guys are going to disagree with me, but I'll start with you, Howard. Who do you like, Miami and Atlanta? Miami favored by 2.5 at home.
Well, I do respect your pick at the beginning of the season, picking Miami, and they're 2-0. They've looked very impressive in their first two games, going into Indy and beating Indy. Now they're coming home for their home opener. I always like a team in their home opener because teams always want to impress. They don't want to lose fan support after the first game. If Miami comes out with a stinker, people are going to say, you know what, this team's the same old Miami Dolphins. I think this is a brand new Miami Dolphin team. I think you're right. I think Tannehill is developing to be a super quarterback. I said at the beginning of the year, Atlanta I didn't think would repeat as well as they did last year. And that line is also, I think they're fishing in people. I think they want people to bet Atlanta, making Miami a favorite against a team that nearly went to the Super Bowl last year. So I would agree with you. I would, if I had to recommend a team there, it would be definitely the Miami Dolphins.
Uncle Ben, this is not one of your favorite games of the week, I'm sure.
No, this is not one of my favorite games, but I do agree. Tannehill's really come along. Mike Sherman used to be the coach at Texas A&M where Tannehill played, so that's why they picked Tannehill right away, okay? There was a marriage that was made there. He's had this kid now for 4 years in college. Now he's into his second year in the NFL, so 6 years he's been working with this kid.
Good point.
You know, so he's come along. Maybe he's a little farther along than most kids would be at that point, is all I'm trying to say. I do think their defense is steady. You know, it's surprising that they lost Jake Long, who was one of the best offensive tackles in the league. And people thought they were going to suffer there, but they seem to be protecting very well. Okay, they've had trouble at home over the years, though. The Dolphins. They've been a better road team, which is very unusual, than they have been a home team. I don't like this game. It's not on my service. I really don't have a feel for this game. You know, some games when you look at the card jump out at you, and some games don't. Well, this is just one of the games that doesn't jump out at me, guys. I really don't have a selection on the game. It's a good game to watch. Atlanta's a very good. It's two good ball clubs playing here. I just happen to know though that the Atlanta Falcons have covered 7 of the last 8 times going down in Miami. Whether that means anything or not, you be the judge. The Dolphins have been a sad sack team over that period of time, so that might not apply this week, but it's a very tight game. The spread's, I think, 1 or 2 points.
2.5.
I don't really have a call on this game, guys. I'm sorry, but I'm just going to have to sit on the sidelines and watch
That's
this one.
okay.
That's a good thing when you don't like a game not to make a selection, because why pick a game when you really have no recommendation just to pick a team? You'll look stupid, you know?
The problem is, as you know, and so many of our viewers will be able to relate to this, is that when you're watching an NFL game, it's almost like you have to have a rooting interest financially. So I know that's what the bookies count on.
But that's where guys get cleaned out.
I know that.
Say, this game's on national TV. How can I watch this game without a bet? But
Yeah.
they really don't have an opinion on the game. So they'll just bet it just for the action.
So that's another
and they'll
tip.
lose.
Don't bet, even
Just
if
for
the
the
game's on
action.
national
Yeah.
television, if you don't have a great feeling.
Yeah.
Correct. Maybe you'll just watch the game and learn something, so when those two teams
Good
meet
point.
in the future, you'll have a better idea of what these teams are going to do.
Exactly.
Good point. Okay, you're watching Talking Football at TalkingSports.tv here at Charlie Fitz Whiskey's. When we come back for our next segment, we will get the games that Handsome Howard and Uncle Ben really do like, and we'll do that after this. Don't go away.